Hello and welcome back to Read the Book First. This week, Isaac joins me as we read and discuss Douglas Adams' very famous, infamous even, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I am officially in the science fiction cool dude pop culture club that I now understand all these references. Thank you for all those who have listened to our podcast, subscribed, downloaded, rated us 5 stars. All so wonderful. Thank you. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast and keep leaving us happy little reviews. I appreciate it so much. For those interested in what we're going to read and watch next, all the info is on the Instagram, so make sure you follow us there. If you have any suggestions of what we should read next, you can DM me on Instagram. Thank you guys for listening and enjoy the podcast. Welcome back, Isaac.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to be back.
Thank you for being flexible with my plans.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I know that you haven't listened to the last podcast because there's a special shout out to you at the beginning.
Oh, snap.
So now I'm calling Isaac out for not listening to the last podcast, specifically the first 2 minutes. The rest of it, it's fine.
I'm about halfway through the book review that you and Amanda did for Princess Bride. So I am behind.
All right. You're more than forgiven, but I just want to be a little snarky because I did start the podcast last week shouting you out.
I'll start this podcast shouting me out too, so we'll keep it rolling.
Yeah, shout out Isaac for being my guest and for being very flexible.
Woo.
This week we're going to be discussing Douglas Adams' very famous, infamous, I'd even say. Really? Yeah, infamous. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Before we get into it, tell me, because this is one of the books that you will say it's one of your favorite books when asked. Like, it's when I ask you over the last years of our relationship, this one comes up.
It's my favorite series of all time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when was the first time you like read it, or like how did you get into this world?
I do remember reading it like back in high school though. Like that was, I don't remember if it was like, I don't think it was middle school. I think it was more of a high school thing, and I'm not sure what got me into it. I've always enjoyed like sci-fi based stuff, but I like read sci-fi more than I watched sci-fi when I was growing up. So this is one of the big ones I got into it. So I remember like in elementary school reading more of the like Ender's Game series, a little more like simplified, and
we can do Ender's Game in the future on the pod.
Yeah,
we can.
That'd be a good one, honestly. There's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about. But anyways, that's not what this week's
No, that's not what this... But Hitchhiker's Guide, I don't know, there's something about the... just how flippant it is, and it really got its hooks deep into me, and I think left a lot of like style or tropes that I still thoroughly enjoy today. So for example, like just maybe going too much on a tangent, but like I in the past couple of years got into like Discworld by Terry Pratchett, and I was like, it felt kind of like coming home a little bit because they're different writers, but they're
like the same vibe,
very similar. Yeah.
As like not like I've not read much Pratchett at all, but the bit I have read, they definitely belong like in the same like writing world.
Yeah, very satirical, good-hearted, flippant little British authors. It's so dry. Americans could never.
Yeah. I have never read this book. I remember my cousins, specifically my boy Albertson cousins. Shout out if y'all listening. I'm sorry if you can hear our dog is snoring in the background, or / just breathing heavily. So if you hear some of that, that's just Nori ambiance for you.
Yeah.
Anyways, I remember them being really into it. But whereas you said you read a lot more sci-fi than you watched, I was the opposite growing up. And that partially because my dad really liked watching sci-fi stuff. So like we watched a lot more sci-fi than I read it. But I do remember when this movie we're not going to talk about the movie at all today, except for this is how I was introduced to this world. One of my really good friends in elementary school, Tori loved the movie. I'm not sure if she ever read the book or not, but she loved the movie. And I remember her quoting it all the time, and her always talking about how she was so suspicious of dolphins and like all this like stuff that she used to say all the time that I never really fully understand as a 5th and 6th grader because I hadn't read the book or seen the movie, whereas Tori had obviously done. And so now reading this years and years and years later, I'm like, oh, this is what Tori is always talking about.
It is ripe for like inside jokes and
yeah, I
and
feel
all that.
I think that's the biggest thing. I feel like I've fully like joined a club now.
Yeah.
This book is so British. First off, it is so British. The intro of the book, I loved the intro. It starts off with the whole bit about people thinking about who created the world and
the digital watches. Oh,
the digital watches.
Yeah, the whole bit about like people were very upset about the world being created, and honestly, maybe we should have gone back, like to not even have being there. Yes,
it's so British. And I remember I started reading it, just with my eyes as you read, or one of the ways you can read. But then because it was so British and because of all the quirkiness. It wasn't even to the sci-fi part, just the quirky Britishness. I was like, I need someone with a British accent to read me this because I cannot comprehend at the rate I need to be comprehending because of the British. This was lacking in my brain. And so I went on YouTube and I found some audio recordings and I listened to the audio as I read the book along with it. And I remember the intro part, you just sat down and you're like, I'm gonna listen for the first half hour.
Yeah.
And it was excellent, which makes sense because this book, published in 1979, was actually a radio play, which is like very well known that it was a radio play. It was a 6-part radio play, and I'll talk about the different parts later. But you can just tell from the intro that this was meant to be read out loud. Like it just has, I feel like it has that effect. Like maybe not like as a theatrical play, no. But there's something so like rhythmic almost to it that it just is nice to be read aloud.
Yeah. See, maybe this is my bias about some of the adaptations I've heard. I actually think this works way better written because part of it. So this is maybe just my own biases coming in, but the writing is incredibly quippy and like quick, and it's really
is the writing quick because it's all run-ons.
Okay, maybe it's
I'm just being technical. I mean, you're right. It is quick, but I also I love a run-on sentence.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've known that about me, Isaac. But I love a run-on sentence, and that's his writing style. Yeah. It's quick while also being one paragraph is one sentence.
Yeah, it's great. But I guess what I'm trying to say, I think some of the writing that like lines that I absolutely love, that I'm like, that's so clever and witty. If you don't get it just right when you're saying it, it sounds off. It sounds like too try hard or like,
yes.
Ooh, okay.
Absolutely.
And so I was pretty impressed by the little YouTube.
The audio one I found.
Because it was good.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I mean, yeah, you have to have the right like cadence to how you're saying it and the right emphasis. And I think that's part of the reason why I wanted someone British to read it to me. Because me reading it to myself, I was just like, this is not what it's supposed to sound like. Like, I know what this is supposed to sound like. I knew I needed like a Stephen Fry or someone to read it to me.
Yeah.
And so that's when I found the audio version on YouTube, which I love. And we love accessible books.
It's true.
But yeah, so I highly recommend that going into the reading experience. Unless you are super British, then I guess you don't need to listen to the audio. You already have a leg up. Usually we start with a summary of this. And I think it's almost impossible to give a summary without spoiling a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like my closest thing as a summary is we have a human, Arthur Dent, goes on a space adventure through mishaps. And I think that's...
And mishaps happen?
Yeah.
And the story, like things... It's more fair to say that a lot of things happen to a few of the characters than to be like, there is this overarching plot that is achieved. Mm-hmm. And that is partially because what is known as Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like you said, is just the first set of the story.
Yes.
So, like, I've read all of it. And by all of it, that's like I've read all of the Douglas Adams books.
So there's five books in this trilogy, is what they refer to as, which for complicated reasons and for tongue-in-cheek reasons as well, I'm sure. Because there's nothing he says you can take seriously.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the whole thing. Is like everything is tongue-in-cheek. You just have to go into every part of this knowing, which I like in my sci-fi, because then I don't care about if it scientifically makes sense. That's my favorite kind of sci-fi. If it doesn't make sense on purpose,
this is, as someone who I do thoroughly enjoy hard sci-fi. Like I like I love The Martian. I love and stuff like Gundam, when they try and make all the crazy tech they have like make sense in the real world, or like all this other stuff. But this series is just like, well, we have this thing called an improbability drive, and we're going to press a button, and all the wildest stuff like possible is going to happen. And you can't
say it can't happen because it's improbable and it's basic. I love that a lot.
Yeah.
I think I would describe this as, what's the opposite of hard sci-fi? What do you call it? Soft sci-fi? Lo-fi?
I don't know, actually.
What's because hard sci-fi is like because like it's not, there's high and low fantasy, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
I should know
is
this.
It soft sci-fi?
I'm sure there's a term. We should maybe Google it and come back. But like Dune and stuff would fall into that, where it's more like, I mean, Dune is a whole other thing. But
so I feel like this would be, if I don't know if it's called soft sci-fi, but I'm going to call that for this like analogy I'm kind of making. I feel like this book is soft sci-fi in disguise as hard sci-fi, but also making fun of hard sci-fi.
Yeah,
as amongst many other things. Like it's not, the purpose of this series is not to make fun of sci-fi. It uses science fiction as a like literal ship to go and like poke fun at just the human existence, really.
Yeah.
All right, so we start off on Earth.
Yep.
And Arthur Dent is our person that we're focusing on. I wouldn't say he's the main character, but like he's quite important.
Yeah.
At least we're following him. He's waking up and all he is thinking about is Yellow and Bulldozer. And it just is so much fun. And he's just sitting there trying to think of Yellow and trying to figure out where that comes to mind and make a connection. He looks outside. He sees a bulldozer. That's important for some reason. And it starts out and it's just covered in just British mundaneness.
Yeah.
Like, I was almost like, something needs to happen in the next page or I'm gonna be bored. But like,
and then the thing that happens is, they're gonna bulldoze
your house and you have no choice.
Yeah.
And then there's this big like bit where he's trying to figure out, like he's essentially out protesting getting his house getting bulldozed, like standing in front of it. And they're like, well, what are you bulldozing the house for? And he's like, for a bypass. And there's this big thing about how if you need a bypass, like
you need to go from A to B and
really fast.
People at point C are like, what's so great about A and B? It's very good in British.
It's just so fun. But it was so mundanely British and like just like going in circles, and this guy being like, yeah, we very bureaucratic, right? Like, oh, we put this paper up and it's been in this basement. You could be, for months, you had months and months to go against this in the right ways, quote unquote, the right ways.
Yeah, to go to the council and see the posting. And he's like, yeah, I went and passed into the dark basement and found a file cabinet behind a door that says like beware of the leopard, and in that it says you have so it was very kind of making fun of all of the bureaucracy of it all. And
Arthur's just having the crappiest day. Poor Arthur. He just wants his home.
He just wants to go walking down the street.
Okay. Different Arthur. But we do respect all aardvarks on this podcast.
But it is clarified that Arthur Dent is human.
Yes, very much clarified, which is important because then soon his friend, Ford Prefect, walks up. Is this time for another Isaac's Car Corner?
It is slightly, yeah. So they luckily, because I definitely missed this the first a million times I read it. I mean, I've only read it a few times, but there in the forward, Douglas Adams specifically calls out how he named, like, Ford Prefect took their name from the car, the Ford Prefect, because he didn't understand like America. He didn't understand humans, and so he's like, this is a common, normal name.
Yeah.
And so he literally just named himself after a car, but it was only a car that was available. The car was not available in America, and this book basically was like big in the U.S. and in the UK, and so it was like just
So, like,
this joke completely missed Americans.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's right.
Any fun facts about the Ford prefect besides that?
It's kind of a cute little old guy.
Can
It's
I
like
see a picture?
Yeah. There's honestly, the 60s ones are cute.
The 60s ones are very cute. It looks like something Mr. Bean would drive.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah, just that kind of vibe. Yeah. So Ford Prefect, our character Ford, he is Arthur's bud. Arthur does not know at this point, but we do know as the audience that that Ford Prefect is an alien who's been stuck on Earth for 15 years. We do find that out pretty soon.
Yeah.
Arthur has this really fun interaction with the guy who's in charge of the bulldozing.
This is one of the reasons why. So I absolutely love Douglas Adams, but I haven't read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in like at least like since I started grad school. So like at least like 6 years, and probably longer than that. And I was kind of like, oh man, like, you know, I really loved this when I was in high school. It was like some of this writing, like how's it look when I come back to it?
Yeah.
And then immediately, I mean, besides like the intro, which is, actually, as I said, pretty much perfect, he gives this entire backstory to the guy operating the bulldozer and being like a direct descendant of Genghis Khan, but like he's just a guy who does bulldozing, but also like kind of wants axes on his mantle. And it's just like, it's really silly, but like a great little details.
I feel like we find out more about the guy than we know about Arthur Dent's backstory.
It's true
at this point, which is it's just fun. But essentially, Ford convinces this guy to take the place of Arthur, who is protesting,
in an incredibly British way.
Yes, so that Arthur can go to the pub and have a drink with Ford. And Ford's like very like, we need to get this done. We have 15 minutes. We have 10 minutes or something like that. So like, but us, the audience, are like, why do we have time? We're like, in our heads, we're like, he's an alien, so something weird is going to happen. Right? Because we know that this story cannot take place on Earth because it's called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
And Ford is very like, why are you wasting your time here? Like, come on, I got something big to tell you. And he's like, they're going to bulldoze my house. And he's like, the world's ending in 15 minutes. Yeah. Come to the pub.
And Arthur's like, well, fuck, dude. Sure.
Yeah.
And so they go to the pub, and it's another bits. And like, we find out about the actual Hitchhiker's Guide? I think we do, because it talks about little things.
Well, we heard about it already slightly because Ford works for them. And it's introduced as a, he's tasked with updating the guide. The guide.
And so they go to the pub. There's a bunch of entries from the Hitchhiker's Guide that we read throughout this. Like, it's kind of like asides. And we get the one about the pan-galactic gargle blasters. Which is so fun. And also, there's that guy on YouTube.
Yeah.
The
how to drink guy.
Yeah, I'm assuming he has made it.
This is very much one of the like. It is not an uncommon reference to this.
I'm not promising I'll do this, debating on what the ingredients are, because they might gross me out. But if it seems plausible to do, maybe for when we watch the movie, I'll make a version of the pan-galactic gargle blasters for us to drink.
Okay. I mean,
no promises, but I think that'd be fun.
Okay. Sounds good.
And maybe I'll just get edible sparkle glitter to put into a Moscow Mule and call it good.
I would be happy with that.
Galaxy Mule. Anyways, so we get these fun asides, and then anytime there is the asides from the actual Hitchhiker's Guide, I love them. Yeah. Like, every time. Every time I just am like, yes, give me more of this. But yeah, they're at the pub. There's like a bunch of interactions with the bartender. Ford keeps like overpaying him, and he's like, spend it now, dude, because the world's gonna end. And then the bartender's like, well, shit, I'm gonna spend it now. And he like eventually calls like last call and stuff. It's all this fun. A few quotes I wrote down. I forget who says it, but I'm assuming is Ford. But he says, time is an illusion, lunchtime doubly so.
So that's one of the most like if you literally look up like Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy quotes, that one pops up. My favorite part about that quote is right underneath it. Arthur's like, You can send that into like Reader's Digest. They have a column for people like you.
Yeah.
And it's very, it's so good.
Another quote from, this is like chapter 2-ish. This, I believe this is Arthur that says it. He says, "I can never get a hang of Thursdays."
Yeah.
And I just like the idea of not like getting a hang of a
It's
day.
supposed to be a Thursday. I can never get the hang of Thursdays. Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially they're drinking for, it's like you need to drink at least 3 beers because it's going to help.
Muscle relaxing.
Muscle relaxer, yeah. It's going to help you. And Arthur's like, all right, dude, I'm not understanding all of this. Yeah. But essentially the world's about to end. They drink the beers and then the world ends.
Well, yeah. And they drink the beer. It's not just like instantly. The Vogons tap into like every system, like sound system in the world, and they're like, because this is important, because it's not important, but it's very funny, because their whole thing is like, oh, you're scheduled to be demolished because a hyperspace bypass needs to be made.
Yes.
So it's very much like instantly calling back to the house being demolished for that, and then in a very similar situation to the whole Arthur didn't go to the very British term for local government's place. Sorry.
Local
Britain.
Brits. We don't know your stuff. Essentially the county office.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's like someone who gets on the PA and you only hear the Vogon side of it. And he's like, what do you mean you didn't know this was going to happen? It's been available for 50 years at Alpha Centauri. It's a mere 4 light years away or something like that. It's like, humans, like, come on, that shows a lack of initiative to go there.
Yeah.
And then
so Earth gets destroyed by the Vogons for the same reason that Arthur Dent's house gets destroyed.
And that's very like the vibe of
it's just so good.
Yeah. It's
like, we're gonna make fun of you in a very British way, but then we're gonna just double up on it.
And the opening of the book is so like why I love the book, why I love the series. Not just like the callbacks and like, really doubling down on stuff. But he's very funny, but his writing style is also like really hard to emulate. Like even Pratchett, who's very similar, like they're different. Like there's like they're
very different. Yeah.
What was it? There's some famous quote where he's like, the Vogon ships hung in the sky much the way bricks don't, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then like when Earth gets destroyed, it's like there's a terribly ghastly noise, or the terribly ghastly silence, a terribly ghastly noise, and a terribly ghastly silence. And it's just like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very good.
And then
good writer.
And we just know that the Earth is gone.
Yep.
We're like,
and that's like
and it just cuts. And then it cuts to the Hitchhiker's Guide of the Galaxy talking about towels.
Yep.
And has this huge entry about how towels are the most necessary tool for a hitchhiker, and has all these like really specific reasons why. And I believe May 25th, which I believe is the day that either it's Adam's birthday or the day he died. I'm not sure.
It did say he died in May. Yeah. I don't know if
it is officially Towel in the UK, and I'm sure worldwide too, because of nerddom and the internet. But it's known as Towel Day.
Yeah,
it's very, very important. But it's just, I just loved it, and I wrote down Hitchhiker's Guide Pro Towels.
Yeah,
I had to write it down. But then we do learn about the Vogons. So we switch. It goes from Earth is gone to the Vogons' POV, and we learn a little bit about them.
Does it go to the Vogons, or does it go to Zaphod first?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
That's later. That's next chapter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I literally
it goes Vogon, right.
Because for sci-fi in my brain, I enjoy sci-fi.
Yeah.
But I have to take detailed notes, otherwise I get so confused so easily.
Yeah.
And so I literally wrote chapter by chapter notes through each one. But yeah, the Vogons are described to be super bureaucratic, but they're also super angry all the time. Yeah. That's their whole thing, is that they're angry, but they have a system and they want to destroy. Not they don't want to destroy shit, but they have a very systematic way of destroying shit. But also they're known for their poetry to be just horrendous and evil. You don't want to get stuck listening to Vogon poetry.
Yeah.
This whole thing. And I forget if we get that as from a Vogon POV or a Hitchhiker's Guide entry of it. I forget exactly.
I think it's a Hitchhiker's Guide, because they give the top. Yeah.
They give the.
It's so, I can't believe it made it into the book, but they give the top 3 worst poets in the universe, and it's Vogons are the 3rd, and there's this another alien race that made people like go insane listening to it. And the third is a ginger bent name of one of his high school buddies. And it's just, it's good. It's very good.
I'm sure there's so many inside jokes in this book that like only him and his friends get.
Yeah. No, there's just some great bits describing like, oh, when the Vogons came out of the sea, because they're like slug creatures, they shouldn't have made it. Evolution was just like, nope, I'm done with you. Was basically the writing, and they persisted out of sheer stubbornness and anger. And yeah, basically they're not like a warring faction that's going to come in and blow stuff. Remember, they are just carrying out construction, basically demolition, because they're following the bureaucracy of like, oh, this planet's got to get demolished, not like we are conquering them or anything. So they're very
yeah. And then we switch to a new planet and some new characters and some new like just information about this weird galaxy that we're learning about. This chapter is way more sci-fi, or like mimicking sci-fi, I feel like. Yeah. Like there's a lot of info dumping, but in a like tongue-in-cheek way. Like every paragraph of this book has jokes. So it's like hard to be info dumpy but without also telling a bunch of jokes. But then I'm sitting here being like, how much of this information do I actually need to keep track of? But there's this whole bit about the president. So the president of the universe is currently Zaphod Beeblebrox. But there's this big paragraph about how the president of the universe is not really important, and that there's really, if anyone knows, there's actually 6 people behind the scene who have the power. Like, and it goes on, and it's I'm not sure if it's actually, I'm pretty sure they say 6.
They do say 6. And they touch on that in future books.
Yeah, but I figure this is something that they come back like on a later book, like the structure of the presidency and stuff. But we find out the president that Zaphod is like about to have this big old like press announcement. He's on this planet called the Heart of Gold, and like
the ship is the Heart of Gold.
Well, isn't it a planet that the ship comes out of?
Well, like it comes out of like a dome.
Yeah, I thought the planet was also called Heart of Gold. I might be wrong.
I think the drive is called Heart of Gold, but
okay. But so they're on the ship, and he has there's a girl who is there named Trillian, who we do meet in this chapter, and essentially during this like very showboaty way, Zaphod like steals the ship, the Heart of Gold.
Yeah.
But there's also this big, I think we also find out about the improbability. Because there's a lot of like weird like mimicking of engineer talk. Like these people created the improbability machine engine, whatever it is. And I kind of just like, I was like, it's not for me.
Yeah.
this bit's not for me. Let's get back to making fun of British people. I can skip the engineer bits.
Well, there's this great bit where like literally it's a chapter where all Zaphod says is hi and wow.
Yeah.
Because it's like he just, he's this incredibly charismatic guy. But
he's also super stupid.
Yes. Which we kind of get to. We
get to later, yeah. But like he's like very charismatic but also stupid. And I forget if it's here where Trillian's like, we get her POV in her head. At some point, she's like, sometimes it's infuriating to know that is he this stupid on purpose so that he is likable, or is he likable because he's actually this stupid? And I'm like, ooh. I know people like that.
Yeah. I think we don't get much from her in this chapter. I think it's mostly just like she gives him a couple looks, and then he throws this like paralyzed grenade thing, and then it cuts. Like that's the chapter.
Yeah, then we're like, okay, so now we're done with these new people. Yeah. Cool. We're back with the Vogons, who are also the Vogon leader hates Hitchhiker specifically.
Yep. Well, Vogons in general hate them. That's that's in the guide.
That's in the guide. Yeah, we are reunited with Ford and Arthur. They are in like not the basements, but essentially in this like
the galley
of a Vogon ship. So they're literally hitchhiking, and this is where Ford tells Arthur like, "Hey, I am an alien. I work for the Hitchhiker's Guide. look at this Hitchhiker's Guide. One,
Yeah.
look at it, and it describes it and has it like there's don't panic on it, and it's kind of like described as like a Kindle.
Yeah.
Or like a tablet that is just essentially Wikipedia
Yeah.
of the galaxy.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
Which is pretty cool. You know,
Being written in 79, where
I mean, it's not
very,
the first.
yeah.
It's not the first sci-fi book or movie or TV show to, you know, essentially think of an invention that's super like a tablet, right?
Yeah.
But like, it's just a very accurate description of a tablet.
But also, even though it's named that and it's very catchy and it's fun and we all love the Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy bits, it's not like the driving point of the story. It's not like the key center thing. So it's not like that. It's because it's not it being unoriginal doesn't really do any disservice to the.
No, absolutely not. But I forgot to look it up. But I love it when a book says its title or like a movie says its title.
Yeah.
And I forget what that's called.
Okay.
But I do love that they, you know, mention the title.
I really love that throughout it they talk about the encyclopedia like Galactica or whatever.
Yeah,
and
and how it sucks.
They're like it's got, you know, all this, it's got all the information, but then they're like, well, but the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy does so much better because it's slightly cheaper.
Yeah.
And also says don't panic on the front.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bit to go back to the alcohol thing where it's like the Encyclopedia Galactica is like alcohol is this volatile organic compound mix with the like grain mix and you know, you can find it here. And then there's a whole paragraph on how to make a pan-galactic gargle blaster. And it's like the Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy vastly outsells.
Yeah. But yeah, Ford's just telling him a bunch of stuff, and Arthur's like, wait, aliens come to Earth? And he's like, yeah, a lot of rich kids will essentially come to Earth, buzz Earth, and then leave. So essentially, rich aliens are ding-dong ditching Earth, which is so fun to think about, like, in just the actual knowledge of real-life Earth and people's alien craziness, you know, throughout the decades.
He also explains that he got stuck on Earth for like 15 years. He got stuck on Earth
for 15 years. So he's excited to be out and about. But he also gives Arthur the babblefish.
Yeah.
So it's a fish that you put in your ear and it essentially eats the thoughts of other people, but that produces you being able to understand it in your native tongue.
This is when we say it's soft sci-fi because you can say there's a device that does this thing.
It's a fish. It's not a device.
Yeah.
It's a living creature, a little parasite.
Eats brainwaves.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed the babblefish bit. And then we also find out that I think Arthur looks up Earth in the Hitchhiker's Guide, and he sees that it used to say harmless, and then Ford's update of it is mostly harmless.
Yep.
And that's it.
So 15 years.
Arthur's sitting here being like, my world just got just my home, not like my literal home, and then like my home planet.
And everything he's ever known. Because
everything that means home to Arthur has been destroyed in a blink of an eye. And his world is, quote, mostly harmless.
Yeah.
But then you think about all the harm actually of Earth, like within its own if you actually think about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's also kind of on that notion of harm, you know, I think this is maybe pushing back on kind of poking fun at the idea of like, you know, people just don't understand each other. And if they could open communications, like peace would reign.
Yes. And the babblefish part, it says
and the babblefish is like, oh, once everyone understood each other, it led to like
the babblefish was responsible for bloodiest wars that you could even imagine, or something crazy like that. It's a good bit, but the boys are stuck on the Vogon ship. They're hiding with this other alien species that work for the Vogons.
Yeah, the cooks. I forget what they're called.
I forgot what they're called, but the cooks love annoying the Vogons, which is why they work for the Vogons.
And they brought in, they're like, hitchhikers make them angry, so we'll
let you. So like now, you know, we're seeing Ford actively update the Hitchhiker Guide, which I really like.
Yeah.
Which is like really the only time we see him updating it in this section, which I am like, that's why I kind of like, and I'll talk about this later, why I kind of want to read more of it, because I'm like, I want more of this stuff. I like this stuff. But alas, the Vogons do catch on that there's hitchhikers, and so they capture them, and then they force reading poetry to them, and Ford's like very upset about it. But Arthur goes, I actually quite like that. And it pisses the Vogons off. I just really like that they're like the worst poets ever, and this Earth representative is just like, oh, I liked it. It was good. Just to show where all of Earth's poetry is.
Yep.
I found as an English major, I found that very fun. Just like shit on all the poetry. But then they, because the Vogons hate hitchhikers and plus the poetry did not kill them, they are about to eject the boys out into space. They do get expelled into space. And then
they're about to, and then they do.
Oh, I wrote here, I enjoy the tongue-in-cheekness, but is there going to be a plot? That's what I wrote here. And
this is like half the plot has happened.
And this is most of the plot that has already happened, but that's what I wrote, that note. But yeah, so Arthur and Ford are rescued, and I don't really remember how the rescue, like, it didn't stick out to me. They just... The heart of gold is just...
The heart of gold makes an improbability
the whole probability. So essentially, but like the actual physical, they get ejected out of...
They just appear
the Vogons,
inside
and then they appear inside the heart of gold, yes.
But in the part where there's like the improbability drive where all the crazy stuff happens, and they get into that.
Yeah.
And there's this... So yeah, basically, the heart of gold, the soft sci-fi of it all is like it can jump crazy distances by doing improbable, like super improbable things.
Yes.
And so it's the fastest ship in the galaxy by like bar none, because it's not normal fast, right? It jumps through, but then it creates all this crazy stuff. And one of the crazy improbable things, and they give like the odds of like 2 million to 1, and it's like would be coming across people in space at that time. And so they end up getting rescued by the heart of gold.
As they're discussing all the improbable things, it turns out that Ford's actually the cousin of Zaphod.
Yeah.
And so not in like Zaphod, and then we have Trillian there, and we don't learn about this yet, but Arthur's like, she does seem familiar.
Yeah.
Right? And so they're like trying to figure out this whole probable stuff. I have a quote that someone says, "That's incredible." No, just very improbable. Which I just fun quotes everywhere. And then we meet
the most important character.
The most important character, the robot.
Marvin.
Poor Marvin.
Marvin is... Oh, I've always loved Marvin so much. He's so good. He was a personality prototype. And
so he's a robot that's supposed to have a human personality.
Yeah.
But...
Well, not human per se, but a sentient.
A sentient, yes. A sentient personality, but really all he gets is just disdain and depression. And
he's also in like a supercomputer.
Yeah.
So when people ask him, he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll calculate that. I'll do it. Just
can you open the door? I mean,
brain as big as planets."
Yeah.
And it's silly, but he's a great character, which is great, very fun quotes, but also the fact that like the ship has been outfitted with like happy doors and a happy computer, and there's just this like inter-robot, just the sheer hatred Marvin feels for the rest of the ship is...
the ship's computer is like super happy go lucky Eddie, and he always wants to help, and then Zaphod throughout the whole book is so mean to it. Like as soon as like he's like, "Computer, can you do this?" He's like, "Oh, I'm surely be happy to," and Zaphod's like, "Shut up!" Like constantly. And I always felt bad for him.
Felt bad for Eddie.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Zaphod's just very mean to him, and I wrote that down because I was like, "This
poor
is
Eddie.
A lot of meanness." But yeah, so they're like getting used to it on the ship. Zaphod is like catching up with Ford about they're both at their lives. Oh, Zaphod, we didn't mention this, is a 2-headed alien.
3-armed, 2-headed. Yep.
3-armed, 2-headed. So there's lots of just jokes with that around it. As they're catching up, Arthur realizes that he had met previously on Earth Zaphod at a party, as well as Trillian, who then was known as Trisha McMillan. And that's how they like recognize each other. Zaphod had come down to Earth and then essentially like abducted or captured like low-key Trillian.
Consensually captured.
Consensually. Yeah. Consensually. Cause she's
Well,
like,
ish.
she's
I
like,
guess we don't know if he was like, well, come with me. And she was like, yes. And then, yeah.
Because she's like, she's a mathematician.
She wasn't, she didn't want to go because
she
of the
didn't want to go because she was like bored with
physicist.
everything. Yeah, she's a physicist and she was like bored with her job on Earth.
But
at the party they're at, Arthur was trying to like flirt with Trillian and like get along with her, but she got quote swooped up by a different man, and who happened to be Zaphod.
Zaphod, she's like, I'm from a different planet, baby, or something.
Exactly. Which I thought was just fun. And wasn't there something about the improbability of finding them being like the phone number to that party or something like
something like that? Yeah, there was something to do with
all
a phone number.
Out.
Yeah.
But so they're on the Heart of Gold, and they are off to look for a planet, and so essentially Arthur and Ford are just along for the ride because Ford's a hitchhiker. Arthur's like, I guess I am now too, like by circumstance.
Yeah,
like I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, Arthur's very much along for the ride. He's like, well, my home's destroyed and I have no objectives, so
I guess I'm here. And so they're looking for a planet. They're looking for this very famous planet that in a previous time, like thousands and thousands of years ago, when everyone was richer people or richer aliens existed, that this planet created planets for these rich people.
Yeah. And also, but it's been dormant for so long that it's thought to be a myth. Like it's like a children's story. Yeah.
And so they're off on this like essentially treasure hunt for the planet Magrathea. Yeah. Magrathea. And so they're looking for Magrathea, and because they're on the Heart of Gold, which is an improbable machine, of course they find it. Yeah. And it's like pretty quick that they find it. Like they're just hanging out and chatting and yelling at Eddie on the space. Like nothing like here stood out to me much.
Do they get, so this might be in a different book. So they get targeted by the security systems on the planet. Mm-hmm. Is there anything to do with them getting, I think this is like, never mind. This is like the next scene. Like it's like one of the first scenes in Restaurant.
Yeah, because I'm listening to it now. Okay. They're going towards Magrathea. Of course, they have the probability machine guy thing. So they end up finding it. But of course, Magrathea is not going to be super hard to find. It was set up on purpose to have defenses. Treasure planet? Oh, well.
Yeah, I mean...
so they're getting close to the planet, and they hear like a voice message, essentially.
Like a pre-recorded
voice message. It's from 5 million years ago, being like very like kind, like a very British way, being like, leave a message at the beep. Watch out for the missiles. Like it's essentially, it's like leave your call.
And they keep going, and it's like, oh, please leave. Like we're thrilled by your like how into this you are, but please leave. And then they keep going, and there's a final one where it's like, please know that these cruise missiles with the nuclear warheads are just a part of the package for our most interested guests or something.
Yeah. And so they have missiles coming at them, so they're freaking out.
Eddie's not. See, I get it. I get Zaphod's disdain for Eddie. Eddie's sitting there, like, well, hi guys. Nothing we can do. Missiles are going to hit us in 45 seconds. Being all cheery.
Yes, but he's mad. But he's yelling at him the whole time. That I understand.
Yeah. He's too happy. I wonder if it's like if Eddie's like, I think Eddie's American coded. I think for a British author, I think Eddie's a little American coded.
It might be that vibes out. Like, yeah, that does. Yeah. So they're like trying to figure out what happens. Arthur ends up doing something with the improbability.
He engages the improbability,
which turns the missiles into two things: one, a giant sperm whale, and two, a pot of petunias. Yeah. And we get this sperm whale's whole thoughts of coming into existence and like being self-aware and then dying. And it was like I can understand how people could find it funny. So funny. I found it heartbreaking.
It's also a little heartbreaking, but it's pretty funny.
It's awful. This poor whale's in space, and then it's a dead whale.
The whale never That whale never suffered. It never had a bad time. It came into existence, was excited about air rushing, and was happy to meet a friend. And then it exploded on the ground. What to have such a pure existence.
I'm like very sad about the sperm whale.
But the better one, so they don't move anywhere. They just turn the missiles into the bowl of petunias. But this, and then, I mean, that's fun. That's very Douglas Adamsy. But the most Douglas Adamsy thing about it is the next bit where all that went through the bowl of petunias' mind was, oh no, not again. And there's a line about like, if we knew what the bowl of petunias meant by that, we'd know an awful lot more about the universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is, it's a good bit all in all, but it does break my heart. And that's okay. It's okay. And then so they
also broke the sperm whale's heart.
And they land on the planet. And I wrote that they're being too mean to Eddie. But now that I think you're right that Eddie is American coded, I'm okay with it, because he's very much like when like British people imitate American, like, howdy partner, let's go have a burger, cowabunga, dude. Yeah. Like Eddie is very much that, and now I get it.
Yeah.
I'm less mad about him being mean to Eddie. But they get on the planet, and the description of the planet gave me very much like Bradbury vibes. Ray Bradbury, you know, very famous sci-fi author, but he wrote this one short story called something in Golden-Eyed. Shoot, it's a creepy short story, like very 50s sci-fi.
Yeah, I don't really know, or maybe I know some of his work, but I don't know him.
But the way he describes the planet is it's like deserty, like abandoned, right? And then they come upon the whale meat.
Yep. Unfortunately.
So sad. I started exploring, and this is where we start with learning more about Zaphod. This is where Zaphod kind of realizes that something's missing in his brain.
Yeah.
And he, like, on the ship or through some computers, he realizes that there is parts from both of his brains, because he's two-headed. Both of his brains are missing a part, and so like
they're not missing. They're like he cauterized parts of his brain, and then literally inscribed his initials into it.
Yeah.
So he was like, well, if he had this whole plan to steal the heart of gold, but he never would have been able to be president if he knew he had that plan.
Yeah.
And so he had to, Yeah.
And so, like, which is very funny, and for sure probably a big plot point of later books, I'm assuming.
Just forget, honestly.
Just based off what I would do if I was an author. But they decide to keep going exploring, and I believe they start to split up here. And so Trillian and Zaphod and Ford
go. Arthur just hangs out on the ship.
Yeah, go underground, where Arthur is hanging out with Marvin on the ship. Just trying to make small talk, and Marvin is just,
don't talk to me about life. Don't talk to me about life.
Yeah, just being so depressed. But Arthur ends up going outside because he's tired of talking to Marvin. And this is where suddenly an old man shows up. And then it cuts. That's the end of the chapter. And so like, what? What's happening?
Old guy. Yeah.
So he introduces himself to Arthur and tells him, he's like, yeah, people on this planet are asleep until the economy gets better, because like they can't make money right now, so they're all asleep. And he's there like kind of taking care of the planet and things. Yeah. That's his job, kind of. We find out his name is Slartibartfast.
Old Slarty.
Slartibartfast.
Yep. Which right before that, there was such a good little, I don't think it's Hitchhiker's Guide. I think it's just like a narration bit talking about Magrathea and being like, well, back when the economy was so good enough that people could have like leisure planets, and the economy must have been the economy was great for everyone except for the poor people, but they didn't really matter.
Yeah.
And it's very like you get, Douglas Adams is not subtle with political.
Definitely not at all. So Arthur goes with Slartibartfast and brings him down to essentially his office down under, and like he tells him all about like what the planet was made for, and all this information. And he also mentions that like the dolphins, like, you're not the first species to leave Earth. The dolphins left first. And Arthur's like, wait, what? And then as this whole bit about the dolphins being smart and about and like if you
It's so good.
and this
It's
is where
so
we get the
good.
very famous like this is something that's like
Oh yeah.
I've seen everywhere in pop culture and also all my friends Tori would say all the time
Yeah.
from the movie is so long and thanks for all the fish.
It's so popular that like I feel like if you make that reference, it's a bit of a normie reference. Like it's that popular. It's great, wonderful reference.
It's a reference I would make if I was around a bunch of dudes who needed me to. I need to make a reference for them to give me any sort of respect.
Well, yeah.
Which is a very like
Sci-fi
girl in a room full of sci-fi nerds. Like you have to make a few references that therefore they will like stop looking at you. And that's one of them that I used to make. Misogyny and sci-fi. Woo. And they didn't even know that I'd never read the book.
It runs deep. I did the same. I kind of did the opposite to you when we first met, though, because I've read The Hobbit, but never read Lord of the Rings. And I was like, Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah, but I'm not going to judge.
And here we are, years later. It works.
But I'm not going to. But like, it's different.
No, it is absolutely different.
Like, I'm not going to gatekeep Lord of the Rings.
Oh no, I know.
It's
very, very different. I need the audience to know that I know it's different.
Yes.
I'm just getting Jessica.
Anyway, so we do get this whole dolphin bit, which was like, but like as someone who knew this from pop culture, it is fun to get the whole context.
Well, like my favorite bit of that was like, oh, humans thought they were the most intelligent animals on Earth because they waged war and built factories and were very productive, while dolphins just splashed around in the water, and then dolphins thought they were more intelligent for the exact same reasons. Is like,
yeah,
it's not the exact quote, but that's the vibe of the quote, and it's wonderful. I love this book.
But yeah, Arthur keeps going with Slartibartfast through through the tunnels. We find out that the Megarithia is currently working on making Earth Mark II.
Yeah.
For a different dimension. And this is where Arthur's like,
wait,
record
what?
scratch?
Yeah.
What the fuck? What do you mean Earth was created for something? And then this is where Slartibartfast is like, yeah, Earth was commissioned by mice.
Yep.
And we go into this whole thing, this whole backstory.
The mice, the dolphins were dolphins.
Dolphins were dolphins.
The mice are not mice.
Are not mice. They're actual aliens.
They're like, they're higher dimensional beings, basically.
Yeah, different dimensional beings, like Anarumbi or something weird.
Yeah.
But essentially, these hyper dimensional beings created a supercomputer called Deep Thought.
This is millions of years ago.
Millions of years ago, different dimension. Deep Thought spent years and years and years trying to figure out what is the answer to life and things.
The universe.
What's the answer to the universe?
It's what's the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And years and years and years, and then like there's this whole big scene where there's like a celebration, and they find out the answer.
But before that, though, there's an amazing little scene, and this is where I might be incorrect. But so I like that Trillian is a physicist because in the prologue or whatever, Douglas Adams mentioned that he wanted to be a physicist at one point, but his maths weren't good.
Yeah,
which is an incredibly British thing to say. But then he went in kind of like more the English route. But so to come back to here, there's the programmers are like, okay, we're asking this question, and then right before Deep Thought is like, yes, I will try to answer that. Two philosophers bust in. Yeah. They're like, you can't do this. This is encroaching on our work. We'll go on strike. Like you're going to put us out of the job, which is very good. And then there's a whole bit about Deep Thought being like, well, if you guys just smear each other in the media for the next millions of years while I work on this, you'll become obscenely rich. And yeah, this is very like pop science fun.
I did not remember that bit.
No?
I found it kind of boring.
That's fair. I think it was very fun. It was just poking fun at philosophers, and it was funny.
Yeah, I was just more focused on like this whole answer to life business.
Yeah, it's fair.
But yeah, so we're at the day of answers. There's a whole big party. All they're freaking out. It's been thousands of years.
No, it's been like 7 million years.
Yeah, and Deep Thought working on this, and the answer comes out that the answer to
life, the universe, and everything
is 42.
Yep.
And this is another very basic sci-fi pop culture bitch.
Oh yeah,
moment. Like that the answer to life is 42.
I think I have a shirt somewhere that has 42 on it, and this is life, the universe, and everything around it. So like it's I mean, it's great.
I need to look at the shirt. Now that I've read this book, I think I get the rest of the little pictures on it now.
I don't know where that shirt is. Anyway.
It's all this crazy, silly backstory. But then everyone's like, okay, 42, but that doesn't...
That's the answer. What's the actual
answer.
question?
And Deep Thought says, well, they don't know the ultimate question. And so they essentially decide to make another supercomputer.
Which Deep Thought said he is, or it is, the second most powerful computer. And there's this whole bit. And he's like, no, I'm talking about the one that's going to come after me is the most powerful. And that is Earth.
Yeah. So they commission Earth to be created as the supercomputer to answer the question, the ultimate question. And so this forces these higher beings to become mice on the planet. And so this whole time the mice were like actually the ones putting experiments on the humans.
It's very like silly and fun.
Yeah.
But all of Earth was basically an organic supercomputer.
Yeah.
Which is very fun. And including the beings of Earth were the organic supercomputer.
Yeah. But then it cuts back to Zaphod and the gang as they're going through. I think they're stuck in like the catalog or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Going through all the different planets that can be made until eventually Arthur and Startup Bartfast meet up with them. Oh, there's this whole big thing that Startup Bartfast talks about how, because Arthur's like, just like, he's being anxious about things because his home just exploded, right? And he's finding out that the world is not really the world, is really a computer, etc. And like someone said something about everyone in the universe has paranoia that something big or sinister is about to happen.
Yeah.
It's a really good bit. And then I believe it's Startup Bartfast who says, I'd rather be happy than right any day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, vibes.
I mean, that's kind of the Douglas Adams vibes.
Yeah, then we meet the mice.
Yeah.
So Trillian on the ship, on the Heart of Gold, had 2 mice that she brought from Earth. These mice ended up being, their names are Benny and Frankie.
Yes.
Which are cute. And they essentially give their kind of like mini POV summary of all that information that Startup Bartfast gave earlier. But that they needed, but then they realized the Earth exploded minutes before.
Yeah, like 5 minutes before it was going to give its question would be determined, which is to create room for a hyperspace bypass, which is really just kind of the whole like everything is meaningless is kind of a vibe that goes through this. Not fully. It's not a fully nihilistic book by any means, but like there's a lot of like drats.
Yeah. And so these 2 mice are like talking to them like, well, we have to go back to our dimension. We need to have a question. It needs to be a good question. So they're talking to each other and like, wait, Arthur, you're the last being. We should buy your brain because we'll probably get the question from that.
Because it's like there should be some, he is a one part of the computer.
Yeah, which they don't talk to Trillian about Trillian being a human too, which I'm not gonna ask Isaac to just confirm or deny this because it might be a thing from later books, but like we have not been confirmed that Trillian is a human from Earth.
Oh man, I haven't read these
Interesting.
in a hot minute.
Don't tell me anything. Good thing you forget.
Yeah,
because I will find out later when I finish the series if I do. But they want to buy his brain, and Arthur's like, "My brain," and like, "Yeah, let's just cut it out." And Arthur's like, "No, wait, my brain."
You don't really need it. You're not doing too much.
And they essentially brainstorm a good enough question for themselves.
It goes back to the philosopher's bit, which is why I like that, because it's like, what are we going to come up with to make money? Or like, what sounds good? Yeah, the number of paths something must walk, and all this.
Yeah, and then then an alert goes off, and then there's hostile ships have landed. Yeah, and essentially there's like intergalactic cops because they're chasing the Heart of Gold. The former president / maybe he's still technically president. But essentially these are enlightened liberal cops. That's what they're quoted to be called. That come down, and so they're like they have to go get ready to deal with that. But as they're going back onto the surface, I believe, I might be wrong with how the events exactly play out, but they're going back up to the surface of the Earth to try to go to the ship. But the cops are suddenly dead and their life support is broken. And then they notice that the cop ship is also dead. And then they realize Ford finds Marvin out in the out on the planet, and Marvin had talked to the ship so much into about his depression that essentially caused the cops' ship to commit suicide.
Yep.
So like they escape these cops
because Marvin
is so depressed.
It's really good. It's very good.
Yeah, and then they get on the ship, the Heart of Gold, and then Ford says, "Hey, let's go get a bite to eat. Do you want to go to the restaurant at the end of the universe?" And Arthur's like, "Sure, man." Or maybe it's Zaphod.
I think Zaphod. Because I think
like,
there's a baby in there, which is a very Zaphod. Like, all right, we're going to the restaurant at the end of the universe. Anyway,
yeah,
it's great.
And then that's how the book ends. Is they just leave the planet and head off to the next adventure.
Yeah,
which like.
So from a plot standpoint,
it's very anticlimactic.
They went the whole plot is like, man is on Earth. His friend's an alien. Earth gets destroyed, and they go to a Vogon ship. Mm-hmm. They get kicked out of the ship within a couple pages, and then they get randomly picked up by these guys. Mm-hmm. That we spend a few pages knowing that they steal the ship, and then they go to Magrathea.
All these truth bombs.
Yeah, and then there's a huge amount of truth bombs, and then they get out of it. The bad guys come, they get out of it
really easily.
Yeah, and then that's it. Yeah, and then they head to the restaurant at the end of the universe.
Yeah, so like it is kind of like anticlimactic, but throughout it makes sense for the book because every time you think there's going to be a big, exciting, like climactic part, and they either improbably find their way really easily or luckily, right? Like when they get kicked out into space from the Vogons, they're like, "Oh no, how are they getting to another ship? Oh, they just suddenly appear in another ship." Yeah. Like oh no, they have to deal with all these cops. What are they gonna do? They don't have guns. Like they're just 4 people. Yeah. Like 4 nerds essentially. Oh yeah. The depressed Marvin saves the day. Like. So but that's like part of the humor of it all. Yeah. Is that every single it's like constantly subverting our expectations upon itself.
Yeah, it does a really good job of that.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed it. I think I could not have read this. I think only way I could listen to, I think honestly, any Douglas Adams for me personally is audio through a British speaker. I could see that. But that's just me personally. And I have a hard time with sci-fi in general when it comes to reading. So I will say,
it's very witty and like you got to catch stuff as it comes up. It is nothing like having to slog through the lore of something like Dune. It Absolutely. Is not that. So it's a different. Yeah,
it's easier if you're used to British dry humor. Yeah, and you're like very acceptant of a not normal plot. If you need a very basic plot and you need things to make sense, this is not it.
So what I was going to say, and I had never thought about this until now, and obviously he made stuff after Douglas Adams, but there's kind of from what is focused on. I can draw some parallels between how Douglas Adams writes his books and how like Tarantino writes scripts, because that is incredibly dialogue focused. Yeah, it's incredibly like, ooh, there's some witty stuff going on. We're spinning on the characters. And the story's kind of happening, but the story's really just there to function so that the characters doing things make sense.
Yeah. Interesting.
They're not like 1-to-1, and it's not like if you're like, oh, I love Tarantino or I love Adams, you have to love the other one. But it is a little like, oh, if
Tarantino's like the American film vibe-ish similar.
I mean, not the flippantness at all. The vibes are very different.
Vibes are different, but
the focusing on dialogue and
I can see it.
Quipping stuff is
Do you know how Douglas Adams thought of this idea?
Yeah, no, he was drunk in Germany.
Nope.
Oh wait,
Austria.
Oh crap. Okay, right. Okay, he met someone who's speaking German. Right. I was sorry. The German supremacy.
So he was lying drunk in a field in Austria, looking up at the stars drunkenly, but he had the Hitchhiker's Guide to Europe with him, and he's like, oh, someone should write the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
And then he forgot about it for 6 years.
Yeah. But Douglas Adams, very infamous for this series, but like very famous writer and comedian. Originally, this was a radio play that had 6 parts. The radio play includes the first book, has, plus a version of what the restaurant at the end of the earth, because he when he was writing the radio play, after writing the 4th episode, he got hired to write some Doctor Who episodes. And so his co-writer took over for the last 2 bits. But then when he was adapting the radio play into the book series, he rewrote it. So the radio play is different because it has a co-writer for parts of it. But Adams wanted to rewrite it in his own way.
Yeah.
Right. So then he rewrote it into the 5 different books of the quote trilogy. There's also it's 5 books, but there's also 2 like short stories that you can add to it that he wrote later that people have like edited and stuff.
And then there's the what's the guy who wrote? Oh my gosh, he did the other famous sci-fi for kids, Artemis Fowl. The guy who did Artemis Fowl.
Yeah.
Wrote like some books afterwards that were Hitchhiker's Guide, like in the same universe.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that. There was a radio play than the book. There was also a TV series in the 80s that he had a hand in writing. And then there was also a video game that came out in 1984.
Yep, that he wrote for. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he died in 2001, but he did have like the script for the 2005 film adaptation. He did like have, I'm not sure, I'll talk about it more when we do the movie, but he did have a hand in some of that production. So it's not like not touched by Adams at all. There is some of his influence in there, which I always think is good personally, when the author can actually affect the work. And then when you think of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the book cover, what do you think of?
I mean, I spent so much of my time reading the collected works, like the 5 in 1. So it's the one we have right here with the little green dude with the suitcase.
Yeah, so we have this little green blob alien with arms, a big smile, tongue usually, and no eyes.
Yep.
No nose. No ears. No hair.
This
guy is not in the first book, and he's not, I don't think, referenced to my knowledge in the whole book. He is called Cosmic Cutie in America. The Brits refer to him as Jeremy Pac-Man. And the Cosmic Cutie, Douglas Adams hated that the publishers put this on the cover, but it was so popular. This book was so popular, obviously, in the UK, but also in America, but specifically the green alien guy, that cover. So when they had extra editions, like the sequels, the rest of the series came out, or when the editions of them all combined, the publishers wanted to make sure that the dumb Americans would recognize it as that series, that they were like, no, we have to do this. But like, he is
on record
multiple times saying that he hated the green Cosmic Cutie.
Interesting.
I really enjoyed it. I think I would give this personally like 4 out of 5 stars.
Yeah.
It's not my perfect sci-fi book. There's bits that like go over my head, which is fine. You know, either I'm not British enough or I just don't care about engineering and philosophy enough.
Those are I would say philosophy and Britishness are two big pillars of the book.
But what I will say is that as I was reading, I was probably like 20 to 30 pages into this book when I was like, I can absolutely see like 15-year-old Isaac, 16-year-old Isaac loving this book so much. And this book just screams Isaac to me.
No, it should.
And which like, it just makes so much sense why you love this book. And it was like fun. I really found it fun. Like, you've talked about how you have liked it, but you never talked about why or like the bits. But like, I'm reading, I'm like, oh, like I'll get to a paragraph that I'm like, oh, Isaac loved the shit out of this paragraph. I could tell.
Yep.
Like, you know, it's just a very Isaac book, which it was really fun to read because of that.
Good. I liked it.
I really enjoyed it, and I am currently listening to Restaurant End of the Universe.
That's awesome. I think that's once again. I've read all of these like probably 4 or 5 times, but I haven't read them for like probably 6+, 7+ years. But I do think if I had to pick, I think Restaurant is my favorite of the books.
Yeah.
And I forget why. I just like
I just needed a little bit more of an ending, which is why I like going directly, like literally the next day, going into reading the sequel. I don't think I will finish the 5 books soon. I think what I want to do is like wait for my next big road trip, and I think these are going to be great road trip books.
Yeah, something we didn't say is that this is like 140 pages.
Yeah, it's a short book. It's a great Saturday read.
It's good.
Spend like 4 hours just chilling and reading. Recommend it. But yeah, I'm happy to read this one. Yeah. I'm glad I decided to read it, and I got you to be on the podcast. Thank you.
You're welcome. No, I feel like this was a good like you have to come to it on your own time, because I absolutely love this book. And that's the thing, like I mean, I wouldn't say like I was an avid sci-fi reader. I think for my age I was, but then I kind of slowed down on reading outside of it quite a lot. But I think, like I said, I also read a ton of Ender's Game, and I think there's a fair bit of stuff to like. It's definitely worth talking about. I'm excited to talk about it, but there's a lot of like caveats and being like, well, the author and like,
Whereas this is more joyful.
I was a little worried coming back to it because it had been so long. I was like, have I like changed? Is it like not as good as I remember it? And then no, like it just is. And I think it's just so wonderful. And it really was like, oh no, this is as good as I remember it. It felt very like, oh, it's a friend I haven't seen since high school. And I'm like, oh, still think you're wonderful kind of thing. Yeah. And so it was really great to get back to. Even so, I just kind of skimmed it because of time constraints. Yeah. But
oops, my bad.
But once I can go back and read it anytime. It'll be chill.
I'm glad. Next week we're going to be discussing the 2005 movie. I also want to watch the TV show.
Okay.
I'm not sure how. There's 6 episodes. You can get them on Amazon. You have to buy them. Yeah. They're like $2 per episode. Yeah. Which I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna commit to watching the whole season, the 6 episodes. But I will for sure watch the first episode, if not maybe the first 2 episodes. But most of the episode we'll talk about next week will be the 2005 film, will be the focus, plus a little bit of me talking about that TV episode.
It's a weird amount of like, if you just read the first book and you just watch the movie, it's not much content, but like the book's great. Not a ton of content, but if you try and get all of the content available that's Hitchhiker's Guide related, it's all of a sudden becomes a lot.
I mean, I'm not gonna play the video game.
No, I mean that's true. But
I listened to about 20 minutes of the radio play. It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had to do other things. But yeah. Well, so long, Isaac, and thanks for all the fish.
I have 3 of them in that room over there, so you're welcome.
Oh yeah, he has a fish tank. Anyways, thank you guys for listening to another episode. Next week again, we're watching the 2005 Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie, so make sure you watch it so you can listen along. Follow us on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast. Rate us 5 stars. Leave us happy reviews, which would be wonderful. If you have sad reviews, keep it to yourself. Isaac, do you want anyone to follow you?
No, not really. I think I'm fine.
Isaac's here. Recurring guest.
I'll be,
Superstar.
If I change my mind on the next thing we do, which, I think we have decided what we're going to do next. We have decided,
but it's later.
It's later. So if I
It's not been announced.
It has not been. I know. I'm being chill. I'm
excited for that one.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks for listening. And remember, ready, Isaac?
Oh, I almost had so long. Thanks for all the fish.
All right, ready?
Read the book first.